And we're gonna go over here. Can you unplug this thing? Is the last one right?
Yeah.
God, alright. Just let the slideshow play for a little bit while we figure out stuff. You know, everything's not hot, right? This microphone. Those microphone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sunspot Live. I'm Scott Brooks, your host. And as I say every week, you already know that. But for those of you that are joining, those who have been here before and been a part of this, thank you for coming back. Those of you who are new, thank you for being here. We're growing every single week, so we're pleased about that. This has been a labor of love for sure. We're sorry to be a little bit late today, but we've got a new setup, and we're running into a little couple glitches, but we've got them straightened out. So before we get started with my guest today, I want to mention to you, I was able to meet some of you last night at the Texas Rangers World Series Trophy Tour out at the Civic Center. And by the looks of it, by the sound of it, everyone had a great time. People were lined up at 3 o'clock to get into the Civic Center for something that started at 5. People were dressed up in their Rangers gear, and it was an exciting night for Rangers fans here in Waxahachie. We are looking to do it again later in the season. And then at some point in the future, I want to be able to help the city create a Jonah Heim Day here in Waxahachie, because Jonah is now a resident of Waxahachie. Reminder that we do this show because we need people like you to be a beast for good in society. We have too many beasts that are out there for bad, and we want people to be beasts for good. Speaking of that, I believe that certainly is apropos for my guest today. My guest today is Trace Atkins. Trace is a candidate for City Council of Waxahachie, Place 1. Trace, thanks for being here. Good to see you. You're welcome. Trace, I'm going to let Trace tell you all about Trace rather than me doing it, but Trace is doing a lot more than just running for City Council. But it's important that you're able to listen to our candidates that are running for office, whether they're new or incumbents. It's important that you're able to ask questions and get your concerns, if you have any, answered and addressed. Although Trace isn't on council right now, he does have ideas and thoughts and plans, and I think you'll be pleased to hear about them. So what we'll do is spend the next 30 or 45 minutes talking, and then I'll take a little break to remind you of a couple things, and we'll pick right back up, and we should be done no later than 6 o'clock. So with that, I want to say, Trace, thank you for coming, first of all. It is nice. Thank you for having me. My pleasure. It is good to have you here. So they didn't come to hear me talk. They came to hear you talk. And I do have some questions for Trace, and we'll be asking them as we go along. But I think it'd be good for folks, despite you being here for your family being here for a long time, there are folks watching that may not know. So tell us about Trace Atkins.
So, fifth generation resident of this community. I was born and raised right not 2 blocks from where I live. I've spent a lifetime in this community, and I feel the need to protect some of the things that are near and dear to my heart.
Sure.
I spent about 20 years on the Gulf of Mexico catching red snappers. We brought Atkins Seafood back to the community, opened up a restaurant, Fresh Fish Market, and we now are building a lobster facility out on East Main.
Yeah.
We service H-E-B, Cisco, Pacific Seafood, a lot of grocery store chains.
You were doing some, this is a question, but you were doing some of that from your original facility.
Yes.
You served the public, did you not?
Yes.
At the same time you were.
Yes. So we've always had a wholesale operation.
Yeah.
It started out small, and like most small businesses, you work hard and show up every day, and you get you get rewarded for that.
Yeah, for sure. So what number of generations has your family and your wife's family been in a part of Waxahachie?
So my grandmother was a Roebuck, which goes way, way, way back.
Yeah.
My wife, her family is the Odom and Shimpaw families, and they've been around here for even longer. Her grandfather was Rex Odom, and he was a very integral part of really getting Waxahachie on the map in the early years.
Right. Synonymous with the airport, right?
Airport, YMCA. He did a lot of work for the hospital helping get donations so that could get that thing up and off the ground. My wife actually worked for Baylor for several years.
Yeah.
Her first stint was with doing donation work, fundraising, and then she saw a lot of what she liked about hospitals and helping people. So she went back and got her master's degree in hospital administration, and before she basically retired and came to work in the family business, she was running the surgery center here in Waxahachie.
And so how old is the restaurant? That's on the corner of Main and...
It's Main and Monroe, or 77 South.
Okay, yeah.
We originally opened the first location in 2015.
Okay.
And the second location opened in July of 2020.
Yeah. That was a used car dealership before, wasn't it? Because we considered it for the son, but then we found out this came open. And you guys have done a great job with redesigning it and all that.
It's kind of a funny story, but my cousin Jay Hayes built that building.
Oh, really?
For the Morrises. They had Dallas Cowboys there. So
is that right?
And I actually had an opportunity to help him here and there. I mean, I didn't work full time on the project, but I was in and out between fishing. So
nice.
It was kind of cool to get that piece of property back in the family, kind of, so to speak. And what's even more interesting is the building behind it, where the locksmith shop is. That was her grandfather's rental store.
Yeah, it's for me, having moved a lot in my life and not in my hometown. I've often thought about the blessings and the gift, if you will, of being a part of your community, essentially your whole life. I guess there are pros and cons to it. I value being able to move around and get to know a lot of people, but I sometimes think about, wow, what would it be like to drive down the street where I went to grade school? And you guys, people like you, can do that.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, I've always once I bought my first home here, I still live in the same house, my very first and only house.
That's crazy.
But working in Galveston, I was on the road a lot.
Yeah.
On the water a lot. And I have a second home there.
Yeah.
But this one's always been home.
Yeah, for sure.
It's hard to describe, but when I left to go start that career in fishing, never once did it cross my mind to sell that place.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you can't do it, but I always say they're going to bury me in that backyard.
I guess I could do it, but nobody knew.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
that's funny. Let me tell my guys, I can't see questions and comments on my screen, so just FYI. Well, I think there's some maybe coming up. I just can't see them. All right, so let's talk about City Council.
Sure.
First, let me just begin with what has been a common question, as you know, and that is, council takes time to serve on it and be involved in it. It's not, no one ever said it's got to be retired people. Right. And a lot of young people serve, and you're still relatively young. I always, think of myself as, if I passed out and died today, somebody would say he was so young,
Yeah.
So you're relatively young, and you've got a lot of business, not just Atkins, but other things. So when you thought about council, one, I'm interested in what you thought the time commitment would likely be, and then what it is you said to yourself about, well, I can do that. So
it's a great question. I'm a firm believer in everything that I've ever set my mind to doing. I commit wholly.
Yeah.
And I would just say that what makes me different than most is I'm very comfortable with surrounding myself with good people and empowering them to make decisions on the behalf of whether it be my business or what have you. I'm fortunate that I have a son. He's 31. He can catch fish in a bathtub. So I don't have to worry about the procurement side of Atkins Seafood.
Yeah.
I've got really, really great staff. I've just been blessed with good, solid people, and and honestly, they're my family.
Right.
You know, when they hurt, I hurt,
Mm-hmm.
and that goes both ways.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, we got one thing we want to fix here on our technical side so I can see your questions and comments. So give us 1 second.
This ain't a song for the broken hearted. A silent prayer for faith departed. I ain't gonna be just a face in the crowd. You're gonna hear my voice when I shout it out loud. It's my life, it's now or never. I ain't gonna live forever. I just wanna live my life. It's my life. My heart is like an open highway. Like Franklin said, I did it my way. I just wanna live my life. It's my life. This is for ones who stood their ground. For Tommy and Gina, who never backed down. Tomorrow's getting harder, make no mistake. Luck ain't even luck, you gotta make your own breaks. It's my life, and it's now or never. I ain't gonna live forever. I just wanna live my life. It's my life. My heart is like an open highway. Like Franklin said, I did it my way. I just wanna live my life. 'Cause it's my life. Stand tall when they're holding you down. Don't bend, don't break, we'll go back down. It's my life, and it's now or never. 'Cause I ain't gonna live forever. I just wanna live my life.
All right, we're back to main cam. All right, sorry about that, folks. We tried a new system. We're gonna have to work through these kinks. I apologize, Trace. We'll pick.
okay.
We'll, just
I'll
when
roll with the punches.
just when you think you got it figured out. So we were talking about the idea that you surround yourself with good people, qualified people, competent people, does enable you to be free to do whatever you need to do. So that was what you were talking about. Yeah.
So we have a great team. I have close to 31 employees.
Yeah.
And then we again, the restaurant is, I wouldn't call it runs itself. My wife spends a lot of time behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more in the procurement side of things.
Yeah.
So I'm scheduling boats and keeping track of what's coming and going and what we need as far as the fresh fish, shrimp, oysters, you name it.
Right.
Our lobster company, we have business partners.
Mm-hmm.
They're based out of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So we send 7 trucks a week on the
Really?
East Coast, and we service, we haul for, HEB, so we hit,
Mm-hmm.
we don't personally hit 370 grocery stores, we hit their commissary and same thing.
Got it. Yeah.
It's a lot of moving parts, but once you kind of condition yourself for, the routine,
Mhm.
it's really not a big deal. It's nothing like what I did back when I was in the Derby.
Yeah.
Derby fishing, you fish the first 10 days of the month, every month. Doesn't matter what the weather's doing.
Really.
I fished in hurricanes, I fished in tropical storms, I fished in just about everything.
I can't even imagine. So, with respect to your assessment of the time commitment and that sort of thing, do you have a sense? And I've asked every candidate, I think, for the past 3 or 4 years, what amount of time they think, or they budgeted in, if you will, uh, it takes to spend to be an effective council person. Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
It is a full-time job.
Yeah.
It is, if you're not willing to make it a priority, don't run for
Mm-hmm.
council.
Yeah.
Spend enough time, just trying to learn, drinking through that fire hose, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
to know that, you're always accessible.
Yeah.
When you step out of your truck, or when you step out of your house, and
Mm-hmm.
you start engaging with the community, you're working,
Yeah.
7 days a week.
Yeah. It's like owning a business in a way. You are married to it 24/7.
And I liken it to fishing. Fishing's hard work.
Yeah.
You don't love it, but every ounce of your game, you're not. I don't care how much money it produces, you won't be good at it.
Yeah.
And you won't stay. You won't have that same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my love for off the ice will pull me through this without a doubt.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about what's important to you in terms of characteristics, attributes, what your premise is, your foundation is as a potential council person. On your sign, you make that relatively clear, right? Accountability is next to your name and that information. It's prevalent. So share with us and the viewers what it is about accountability, how you see being holding people accountable, being accountable yourself, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So when we, and you'll hear me say we and us a lot, because you cannot be an effective member of a council of any size, shape, or fashion without support.
Right.
And so we sat down, and I wanted one word that described me
Mm-hmm.
to my constituents. And there was a lot of different ones floating around, but accountability was probably the single most. I'm a firm believer in finishing,
Mm-hmm.
doing what I'm supposed to do, doing what I said I was going to do,
Right.
and not only that, holding other people accountable for what they say they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So accountability can be much utilized in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
As far as where the city is concerned, I mean, we owe it to our citizens to be good stewards of their tax dollars.
Sure.
And we need to hold those accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I need to hold myself accountable. Okay.
Okay. All right. We've got a microphone that went out. Obviously, you guys know that. So let us get that fixed. We'll be right back. Yeah.
You can't make it too
Okay.
for me.
Yeah, we're back. Trace's microphone went out, as many of you were telling us, so we have that corrected, and we're going to pick right back up where we were. So we were talking about accountability, and let me ask you this: then, are there, when you think about an excellent council person for Waxahachie City Council and the characteristics and attributes, what do you think of as the most prevalent, most important?
They need to be accessible. They need to not only allow or be approachable, but they need to go out and seek various opinions
Yeah.
on everything.
Right.
I didn't talk about it earlier, but I spent 2 decades advocating for fisheries at the state and national levels, and a lot of airplane rides to D.C.
I bet.
But one thing that it taught me is that if I got everything that I wanted, I would inherently just harm folks that I don't even know, and that's a powerful feeling once that light bulb comes on. Because if you're any type of humanitarian, or I worry about harm. I mean, I don't want to harm someone.
Sure.
And decisions are tough. We need to get all the input that we possibly can before we pull the trigger.
I agree.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
to that end, let's why don't you share with us what your experience has been with Tuesdays with Trace?
Yeah.
Something you started doing how long ago?
So right after we announced, I don't know how many. I think this is week 5, maybe. We skipped a week because I had a previous engagement.
Yeah.
But ever since then, we've done Tuesdays with Trace, and that's just, for me, that's putting my money where my mouth is. If I'm gonna say that I want to be accessible, I'm making myself accessible.
Right. And so let me back up and say, does it continue through early voting?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you have one tonight.
Yep.
It's Tuesday, and then next Tuesday, and then I think there's one more
I
Tuesday.
believe so. I'd have to look at my calendar.
So it will continue all the way up until May 4th, right?
Absolutely.
Every Tuesday till
Yes.
then. And what time?
6:30 to 8:30.
Okay, and so folks are invited to Atkins Seafood at the corner of Monroe and Main,
Yep.
and just hang out on the patio.
Yep. So
and-
counting tonight, we have 3. So tonight and then 2 more.
Okay, and at those, are you hearing much? Is there, and this is a positive thing, I'm saying, a redundancy of concerns?
There's really been some great questions.
Yeah.
It's I feel like it's helped me get prepared for
Yeah.
taking a seat on council.
Yeah.
One of the biggest recurring questions is, what are we going to do about growth? Well, we need to manage that. We need to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
I think the community has this feeling like we have outpunted our coverage.
Yeah.
And I can't help but feel drawn to that, because albeit I grew up when this town was a very small town,
Right.
we can't do anything about the growth. It's coming whether we like it
Yeah.
or not, but we can manage it.
Right.
We can stretch things a little bit. We can not put things so tightly, zoned, so to speak. And there's just a lot of the creative things that I feel like we can do.
Well, from a businessman standpoint, you've watched your own businesses grow,
Absolutely.
right? So you've had to manage that process, and that involves people, involves product, involves all sorts of things.
Yes, yes.
So the same thing is applied to the city, that you want to believe that, well, we want to be in a city where this is actually we don't want it to be a problem we can't handle, but we want it to be a challenge we must face. Otherwise, we're dying. We don't want that.
Absolutely.
Right. So what compelled you to want to run for council?
First and foremost, it was an experience. I had an eye-opening experience. One of which was back during COVID. It was just kind of the unknown. We didn't know how that was going to all shake down.
Yeah, right.
And then when I started this latest project, I got really just much more deeply involved, and spending time on that project and going through it from start to finish was an eye-opening experience for me. And it opened some other avenues that I started going down and researching and realized that, wow, we've got a potential problem on our hands. And I just felt compelled and drawn to get in there and do something.
Yeah, it's we have way too many people that sit on the sidelines and complain without ever getting into the game. Matter of fact, we both know that voting turnout is a problem.
It is.
But there is no problem with finding thousands upon thousands who will complain about any given matter as it relates to the city, whether it's infrastructure, growth, management, blah, 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 getting another grocery store here, and so on and so forth. But very few of those people ever go to the ballot box to vote and therefore make a difference.
Voter apathy is
brutal.
Catastrophic.
It
right
is
now.
catastrophic. So what a city like ours needs, all city needs it, but certainly ours is for people to say, I'm not going to sit on the sidelines anymore. I've got to do something about it. And it sounds like that is what motivated you.
So I'll give you an analogy. When we brought Atkins Seafood to Waxahachie, I mean, let's face it, this is a landlocked community. I had a lot of people say, "You've lost your mind. This community won't support a fresh seafood market." I was like, "Well, I've got to try." And what I learned was, it was an education process. Educating my customers as to the differences between fresh, line caught product versus some of the other items that are available, and even those who aren't, fish eaters or seafood eaters. It was a mind-blowing experience for a lot of them that were willing to come out and give it a try. So we did a lot in the early years, a lot of education. We need to do the same thing at the city. We need to, because I feel that a lot of our community they've lost hope. They don't feel like they're being heard, and sometimes that requires us to get up out of our chair and get out into the streets and knock on doors and be accessible to people.
I agree. And so that begs the question, if you win this seat, do you intend on keeping Tuesdays with Trace going?
Absolutely.
I figured you did. There's a whole lot I want to talk about, and I didn't bring any notes, as I told you I wouldn't. I just want to go through it all, and I want you to be able to share. If I miss something you want to talk about, it's your time. But I do think it's good for everyone, because most everyone that's connected and cares enough, and the people watching this will hear rumors, innuendos, all that sort of thing. One of the things you alluded to, and I don't know if you were talking about this specifically, but you were alluding to when COVID came and you were growing and doing more, you experienced a challenge with the city, and pardon the personal reference, but I remember, I don't know anything about cupcakes, but I opened from scratch a gourmet cupcake bakery in Flower Mound, and remember somebody at the city telling me that to get a CO and open, I had to buy a $16,000 grease trap. And very little grease is made from cupcakes. I could have had a 75-gallon one under the sink, but I had to buy a $16,000 one, and a crane had to bring it in and put it in the ground. And I was to tears. And I don't know that that's anything like your experience, but those experiences would lead me to believe or have a negative opinion of somebody at the city of Flower Mound. One of the things that has popped up, and you already know that I've shared this with you before, is that and this has to do with personal agenda candidates, which I'm not a big fan of, and I know you're not.
Right.
But I do want to get this out there that I want you to just, if you will, in your own way, allude to whether or not you have a beef with anybody at council.
I honestly, I don't. It's not a vendetta. It's not an agenda. It's truly, because I have lived here my entire life, there's a lot of people within the city that I have that I have rapport with, people that know who I am and know what I'm about.
Right.
I was truly concerned, and the reason why I'm running is because what do the people that don't have those relationships do?
Yeah.
You know, it's not a me and whoever thing. It's how can I help the community as a whole gain access to things that we should have.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why when you look at my platform, customer service is the third on the list. You know, and it's very important. You know, we pay a lot of tax dollars, and for that we get services, and they're necessary.
Right.
But it's just as easy to do it with good, positive, you know, educational customer service as opposed to, you know, the alternative.
Right. Yeah. So using the Flower Mound as an analogy, if I had known, I think what you're saying is, if I had the example of it is if I had known, say, the mayor in Flower Mound or city council president, whatever system you got, I could have picked up the phone and said, "You guys are jacking me around. I don't need a $16,000 grease trap. Can you fix this for me?"
Right.
And that likely would have happened. But I didn't have those relationships. But the point, correct me if I'm wrong, but the point you're making is that whether I did or whether I didn't, I should be treated the same as the person who does or
Absolutely.
did. Yeah.
You know, it's not just Waxahachie. As a state, as a country, we get locked into a lot of one-size-fits-all rulemaking.
Yeah.
And at some point, we have to bring some common sense back into the equation.
For sure.
You know, because you have a valid argument. I mean, if you're making cupcakes, you know, why do you need that?
Yeah. Or if you're opening a store on the square and in some processes or some requirements in the way that you want somebody to at least hear what you have to say. You talked about listening.
And I'll go one step further than that. Had you had an encounter with someone at that city that said, "Hey, let me walk through this with you. Let me show you why this is the way it is. It's not just because of
we're trying to be a pain.
A, B, C, or D.
Right.
It's because this is what is needed."
You're right about that. Yeah. I just thought of something, and I want to ask you this. This is an interesting question that I think. So, Fish City Grill. Well, first of all, do you consider them a competitor to Atkins?
No, not really.
That's what I thought.
And I guess the best way to describe the way I feel about, and let's just call it other seafood entities.
Yeah.
Competition is awesome. You know, we should welcome competition because what it does is it makes us all better.
Yeah.
And let's face it, I don't have enough seats to seat
accommodate all the
everyone
fish.
that wants to eat seafood
Yeah.
for dinner.
Yeah. Right.
And nor do I want that. You know, we built Atkins Seafood. It's relatively small, but it's that personal relationship. You know, I can walk in there and I have the ability and the time to speak with every table.
Right. Yeah. That therein lies a distinction between. I mean, not that Fish City Grill can't do that, and
Right.
typically managers will come
I
around.
hope they do.
Well,
you know?
managers, you know, I think they teach at restaurant management school. Go around and ask every table if they're okay. You know, whether they actually mean it when they ask, I don't
Right.
know, but it is an important distinction, and I think that's Waxahachie is not necessarily unique. But would you agree that Waxahachie has a quality share, good share of the types of restaurants that and businesses where the owners can authentically, legitimately
Absolutely.
interact?
Absolutely. You know, I say we again. There's several owners of food and beverage entities in the downtown area. Not that we're exclusive to downtown,
Right.
but we started a collective. It's the Waxahachie Food and Beverage Collective.
Yeah.
And it's very light on rules. You know, it's you don't have to participate if you don't want to. But it's a collective where we can all get together, brainstorm, come up with new ideas, and it's growing like a wildfire.
Cool.
This past Hatchie Graw was just such
Yeah.
a fun event.
Yeah.
And it all started with a couple of restaurant, that are friends, and we all got together. It's like, hey, why don't we do this?
Yeah.
And look where we're at now. We
Yeah.
can do that. We can do that exponentially all over this community.
Very cool. One of the things that Trace and I spent some time last week talking and really enjoyed that. One of the things you'd mentioned to me is that you are committed, as I think is right and fair, when it comes to whether it's city management, city staffing, that you would approach things with a clean slate.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important for all of them, from top down, to hear that despite what might be floating around out there, that you're interested in a clean slate. And I frankly, Trace, as somebody who's been, almost desperate to see quality candidates come to the forefront, that's an important element.
Absolutely. And it all stems from my faith in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I think that every human being deserves a chance to show you who they are. And when we take, whether it be rumors or hearsay, if we take someone else's word for who I am, they really never got an opportunity to find out for themselves.
Right.
And so, absolutely.
Okay, good.
I think it's very important that we go into this thing with an open mind, and they'll have every opportunity to show me, who and what they are.
Yeah, and likewise, right?
Absolutely.
Or vice versa. So I had another question that popped in my mind. I'd hate to use the word inexperience because, again, that's the appropriate word, but I don't want people to believe that when I use the word in assessing candidates, that inexperience.
That doesn't offend me at all. So
Okay.
use it away. You go for it.
There have been candidates where I have, when a candidate for city council says to me or says in a group setting or a forum, well, where is council chambers?
Right.
That inexperience they got to go.
Yeah, that's.
We had a guy one time, I think it was in 2016 or something, in a forum at what was the high school, but Coleman now, said on the stage, when asked a question, he basically, in part of his answer, I really don't know what I'm doing here. But he was running for council. So that kind of inexperience is awful, and we don't need that. But your kind of inexperience is really couched in the fact that you've elected to not be in government, right? It's not your inexperience.
I'm what you might call, I wouldn't say anomaly, but I have been around politics for 2 decades. I don't consider myself a politician, but I've sit across the table from quite a few.
Yeah.
And I've earned the respect of some of the most influential politicians in the state of Texas. I mean, I was appointed by Rick Perry to represent Texas, and then when Abbott came on board, he reappointed me to represent Texas, and I take that. I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
Because it really gives those who may not know me an idea of what I'm capable of doing. I haven't sat in a council seat,
right?
And I'm okay with that. But here's the thing: there's not one person that's sitting in that seat currently that was sitting in that seat before they got elected.
How do you get experience? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So, and the way you do that is be comfortable with saying I don't know. But you always follow up. If you don't know something that someone needs from you, it is your duty, it is your responsibility to follow up.
I agree. Let's talk about current city, and then I want to ask you a couple of questions about current city council.
Okay.
There are a couple of issues that you know full well, like short-term rentals and other things that I don't want to put you in the position of somebody on council because they may be privy to information you're not privy to, but I do want to get your thoughts about that as a general.
Yeah, that's fair.
But how do you, if on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being excellent, how well do you think the city is operating or running today?
So, from an efficiency standpoint,
Yeah,
or just from
however you want to characterize it.
I think as an overall grade,
Mm-hmm.
we're doing fair. You know, there are certain aspects of the city that I think are performing excellent, and then there's others that are I would consider poor. It would be really hard without dividing all those things out to put a metric on each one.
Okay.
You know, for example, I feel like we're decades behind on infrastructure, and it's not. I don't lay that at the feet of necessarily the council. The current council, because we didn't get here overnight. You know, we can't fix it overnight.
Right.
But we have to find a way to get caught up, or we're going to stay decades behind.
Yeah, got it. So the current council, you've been there.
I've been there.
You were there last night.
I was there.
You have witnessed other council meetings. You've been at budget meetings, I know. What are your general assessments about a couple of things related to current council? One, competency levels, the ability to interact. You and I talked about the value last week about the value of being able to disagree and achieve a whole lot more, really, and these are paraphrasing, via that approach as to being convinced you got to agree on everything. So disagreement can still mean that there is compatibility. It should mean that there's compatibility. So with respect to your assessment of current council, you're running for reasons, but what are your general thoughts about those things related to council now?
I see a need at the council level for decorum. You know, we and again, I'm not privy to executive sessions, so I don't know how those conversations take place.
Right.
And when you sit in the open meetings, it's kind of a process. You know, they open the meeting, they have public comments,
Yeah.
they close that. You know, it's kind of regimented, so
Right.
to speak. So it's tough to get a feel for that. I have seen last night was a great example. Some people lose their temper and it's unfortunate. You know, it's going to happen. I mean, we're all humans and we all deserve grace when we lose our composure. But the thing I've learned over the years is every time I lose my composure, it costs me something.
Yeah, I mean so that begs this question. Sometimes council people, and as with other people, business owners, the teachers, whatever, use social media in ways that are counterproductive or unproductive, or that can be very provoking. I think what we're talking about is last night, two council members, one more vocal than the other, kind of got into it. The genesis or the impetus for that was a Facebook post,
Right.
and it was addressed in kind of the way we've talked about. If you were advising a council person as it relates to the use of social media, do you have a sense of what you would say to them, or how even you would use it going forward?
So one thing that social media is known for, and it's not necessarily intentional. It's just the inherent traits of social media, and text messaging can be included in that topic of discussion. It's really hard to gauge things like voice inflection, facial, your posture, how because it's kind of monotone as you read it, and sometimes the person that's reading it, because of maybe how they feel about that topic of discussion, or the individual,
person making the post,
individuals in there, could get the wrong impression. And so I would say, interacting on social media, because that is a great access point for the community, it's a valuable tool, but it has to be very well respected. And then with Open Records Act, if you can't have multiple council members weighing in on a subject, so then you get into this you could potentially get into this competition of, well, whoever comments first gets the floor, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's not healthy either.
Right.
So, I feel like that if council is doing their job and they are comfortable with one another and they're really doing what's best for the community, they put the city first. Those things kind of take care of themselves. We when we were doing fisheries management work, that was one of the things that I always would say is, let's do what's right for the fish.
Yeah.
If we'll do what's right for the fish, everybody wins. You may not get everything you want, but everybody wins. It's the same thing with the city of Waxahachie. If we'll come together and genuinely try to do what's best for this community, we will all be winners. And we have to be okay with disagreeing on those 4 or 5 out of 100 things, and let's focus on the 94 or 95 that we do agree on.
Right. So let's talk about short-term rentals. And,
Okay.
and there may be other subjects that you
It's a very
are
hot
close
topic
to
right
you.
now, yeah.
Well, and there may be other ones that I want to allow you the time. If you want to
Sure.
address them, it's up to you. That's the one that's prevalent on my mind. So I happen to sit on my HOA board, and we have language in our CCRs that say you cannot rent a home in our neighborhood for less than 90 days. Now, whether or not that would stand up in court, I don't know, but that's
Right.
we are adamant about making sure that doesn't happen. You're aware of all the stuff in Pecan Valley,
Absolutely,
I bet.
absolutely.
So, as a potential council member, again, I don't like it when if I knew you had privy to all the information that current council members,
It's okay.
I would ask you that.
Fire away. I'm not
just-
uncomfortable saying that.
Okay,
I don't
well,
know.
I'm going to let you say what you want to say about it because you probably have a position. So what do you feel about where we are? Because there are, let's say 100, who knows, 100 STRs in town. How do you feel about those? And how do you feel about the future as to whether or not we should allow that to continue to grow or we should limit it, manage it?
So first and foremost, the horse is out of the barn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So now we have to figure out how we're going to manage what's already there. And one size fits all doesn't work in this situation. It truly is a case by case, because there's multiple scenarios out there, and I'll just name a few. Okay, you have a dense neighborhood that they figure out that there's a short-term rental operating there, and it's this neighborhood doesn't feel comfortable with that.
Right.
They have every right to have their voice heard at the council level. And at the end of the day, so far we've had 6 of them come before council, and I've been at those meetings.
Yeah.
Two have passed,
Right.
and 4 have failed. The 4 that have failed, to the best of my knowledge, again, I don't have all of that information,
Right.
but it appears to be on things that rules that weren't being followed. One of which, just off the top of my head, was they actually opened and started that short-term rental after the moratorium date. So that's kind of self-explanatory there. Another one had something to do with there's several rules in that ordinance,
Right.
and they weren't being
followed,
followed.
yeah.
The poor people out in Pecan Valley. I was going through the process of getting my building permit for my building out on East Main,
Yeah.
which is that right there was another reason why I wanted to run. I was like, these people are just they're being held captive
Right.
in their own homes,
Yes, they are.
and whoever I have no idea who the owner was or the manager or all the infinite details of it, but I do know this: we should be allowed to have peace and tranquility in our home place. And anything that infringes upon that should not be allowed. It's just like with your HOA. I'm sure you have things about loud music and
We do.
parking and
Right.
so on and so forth. Well, we don't have HOAs in every
Yeah, neighborhood.
neighborhood.
Right, we don't.
So that's when we have to start putting things, ordinances or things like that together, and you got to start somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with some of the rules. I think some of them should be even more strict than they are. But at the end of the day, if we will listen to our community and let them be our voice of reason. I've had people approach me and they say, well, I think all short-term rentals should be outlawed. Well, that's kind of a one-size-fits-all,
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah.
But what I found is when you talk to them and you open their minds just to hear you out
Sure.
and say, look, let's think about this from the other's perspective. What if there's a neighborhood that has a short-term rental and all the neighbors know it's there and they kind of like it because it gives them an opportunity to meet, someone new and
Right.
and talk about the town that they love and the person that owns it, is Johnny on the spot on top of it. They keep it neat as a pin, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It's a positive thing, and they get support from that.
Right.
Who are we to tell them that they can't do
Yeah,
that?
that goes to the issues with Pecan Valley, because as we both know, one, it's like, I know I've told you this before, but several years ago, a guy ran for council, and he said that the city was leading people to divorce and alcoholism. And he came on for an interview, and I said, this is what you said in a public forum. Can you give me the basis for that? And he used an example of a brief conversation with one person as to his public stated assessment of the city. When I thought I politely called him out on it and basically just said, you're really accusing the city of something rather egregious. He got angry. But therein lies the problem with Pecan Valley, is that one clown, and I think not so much the homeowner that has ties to Waxahachie, but the guy that's managing it and is said to council, up yours, essentially.
Right,
I'm not going
right.
to listen.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do.
He's created a problem for everybody else. Now you think of, I know you know Brad Yates,
Yep.
and you know he's got the wedding venue thing. It makes a lot of sense for him to have short-term rentals. Yes.
Yes.
Because those people that are coming to use this
Well,
venue
first
can
and
stay there.
foremost, I don't know if the rest of you have seen that venue, but it's
I have not. I've heard it's
absolute-
beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I've driven past that place my entire life, and it's been a couple of different things, but it's always been pretty dilapidated and worn. And so having someone that's willing to come in and make something
Yeah.
repurposed, so to speak. I love repurposing.
Yeah.
And bringing life back into that. It's really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, like you said, short-term rental in that aspect, you got a wedding party and the brides and the bridesmaids need to be separate, and they need a place, and they want to come in a day or so early because and one thing that no one seems to be talking about is our hotel occupancy in this community.
Yeah.
It's really high. And visiting with people that have venues like that, they tell their customers when they book, they go, if you haven't gotten a room at the hotel,
Yeah.
you better get it now because you may not get one.
Yeah. I mean, we have what I see as a perfect storm, and in a way it's positive insofar as we got people flocking here. We know that. We need to have home affordability and availability. We have a growing interest in STRs. We have hotels that are high occupancy. So we've got this storm that says, okay, well, if I'm the new person coming to Waxahachie, what am I going to do? We want to make it so that people have options when they move here. And we don't want to create systems or structures that keep them, that limit because then we won't get people coming here. So
Right.
it is that kind of perfect storm. I appreciate you knowing about it, and I think at first, I've had my issues with the way council went about this, and I've expressed it to the mayor, I've expressed it to every council member, in one way or the other. But it was kicked a little, in my opinion, humble as it should be, kicked down the road a little bit, and should have been addressed emphatically when it came up, and it wasn't, in my view. And so now here we are. And should you be on council, you're gonna be faced with grappling with that issue. It's an important issue, and we don't need to kick things down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just look at it from the standpoint of Airbnb and VRBO,
Yeah.
just to name two.
Two of
I mean, they've been around for a long time.
Yeah, they have. Goes
and
back.
so I'm sure if you did some digging, you would find that there's Airbnb or there's short-term rentals that have been operating in this community for years.
Yeah. Without a system to
For years.
identify them.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it also is a testament to the potential that they were doing things right.
Yeah.
Because
One
their
of the problems.
neighbors their
Yeah.
neighbors aren't complaining, I mean, and I can see both sides of that. I want to be very, very attentive to that subject, because it is a hot subject.
Yeah.
You've got the potential for interaction with children.
Yeah.
Let's face it, we live in an evil world today.
Crazy world.
And so there's almost a fiduciary responsibility there
Yeah.
to ensure that we protect.
Well, safety of our children, drug use, all sorts of. I mean,
Yes.
again, we go back to my hope is that every council person would have said when Pecan Valley came up emphatically, this is going to stop now. And council can only do so much, but it should have done what it could have done to get this dude under control, because now others are paying the price for it, and they don't necessarily. That's not fair to them.
Well, I mean, it's the age-old saying, one apple spoils the
Yeah.
barrel, right?
Yeah, and it does. It does.
But there again, I mean, if you look at that as much as I have,
Mm-hmm.
you start to see a recurring theme, and nothing against non, resident ownership of property in our town,
Yeah.
but it brings with it that unknown. If you have someone that lives here that is operating that, you have someone to go
Yeah.
talk to. You have someone to go knock on the door and go, hey,
Yeah.
your people, are being too loud.
Yeah, it's skin in the game, and
Yes.
it's like city council. I'm sorry, school board candidates who don't have children in the district. You can't just disqualify them because of that. But why would we elect people who have no? We don't elect people who don't live in the city of Waxahachie to city council. You got to have skin in the game, and this example is of somebody not having skin in the game because we've allowed it to happen, and it's created a mess. So, in thinking about the future, you're a businessman that has intentions, and you can. This is a question, but I'm saying it as a statement. You want your businesses to grow, right?
Yes.
Dynamically, in every which way you can imagine. So when you look at sitting on city council, those are 2-year terms, and I'm going to ask you in a minute about your thoughts of how the structure is right now. But what do you see going forward, assuming you could determine how long you stayed on council? Because you and I have talked about the time element. What do you hope to, in terms of just pure time? How long would you like to be on council?
I think it's going to take your first year to 2 years is just getting, figuring out who's shooting straight with you and who's not.
Right.
But it also gives you an opportunity to start looking down the road. That's one of the things that I feel like I bring to the table is from my first day in office, I want to start mentoring and helping someone to take my spot.
Dang right.
You know, that's what
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 we're
this is all
missing.
about.
Yeah,
Yes.
well.
You know, I mean, I'm not a name recognition guy. I don't care who gets the credit,
Yeah.
but I do care about the finish. You know, the finished product. We have to start putting back into our youth.
Yeah.
We have to start training and teaching and mentoring on the importance of having good, solid individuals at the council level.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've sat around the table with a bunch of buddies and community leader buddies and we're looking at each other saying, well, who's going to fill those shoes, as it were? Who's next up? Because the older generation is an older generation. And so when I know Travis may be watching, and Travis and I worked together, hired him, have a love-hate relationship with him. The hate part isn't really hate. It's just like I'm going to slap him upside the head, just like he wants to slap me upside the head about certain things. One of the things I admire about Travis is that Travis is 32 or 33 years old. And he said, I'm gonna get involved. And he has. Sometimes it drives me nuts the way he gets involved. But I've known that's been mutually the same way for a long, long time. He's young. He's a young man, and we need. And again, you're relatively young, and
I'll be 54 next month.
yeah. So again, if you keeled over, God forbid, people would say, "Oh, he was so young."
Right.
That's true.
And you know, that's the thing. We have to have backup plans. You know, if you were to go into my restaurant and you took my general manager and took him out of the equation, there's at least 2, if not 3, that can at least perform and get us through the day or the week. I mean, he fell and broke his foot and was out for months, and we never missed a beat. I mean, part of that is me picking up the slack and me doing what's needed, my wife doing what's needed, my son, stepping up and filling in. That is what good teams do, and good leadership surrounds themselves with good teammates.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I have often said that the easiest person to replace at the Waxahachie Sun is me. Because everybody else knows how to do what they know what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
And there may be a couple of things that I only do, but they're minimal, really, in the grand scheme.
So I want to ask you a question,
Sure.
and I know that's kind of rare.
That's all right.
Does that make you feel good?
It makes me feel good for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that I can rest most of the time easy. I know that the people that work for me, much like you do, because you've shared it in certain ways, care. They have skin in the game. They care about the direction of the sun. And if I decide to go, on a hiatus for a month, I don't have to do anything to worry about the sun.
And this is what I will tell you. We can do the same thing in our city.
Yeah.
If I make it important, it's the trickle down effect. It's just like telling someone good morning or not telling them. It takes no more or less effort to do one or the other.
Yeah.
My dad just always said, it's just as easy to do something right as it is to do it wrong.
That's right.
It takes no more or less effort.
That's right. I
So-
totally agree. So let me ask you this, Trace. Do you? I know you have a lot of confidence, and you're bold, and you're passionate, and all those things that I think are important to have as a candidate. Again, I do think there's a big distinction between politicians and a person in politics. Should the election not go the way you want, are you one and done? Or will you say, you know what, I learned something in this process. It didn't go exactly the way I wanted, although I know you're confident. But I as a real question, will you do it again? Would you do it again? Regardless.
I'm never gonna quit trying.
Yeah.
And that stems from just who I am.
Yeah.
I'm a finisher, and you know, if someone can come along and do the things that I feel would bring quality and saving that hometown feel, that charm that we all have grown to love here. You know, it's not an accident why people move to Waxahachie.
No, it's not.
And you try to describe that to people that are outside of here, and they don't get it. You know, there's not to say that there's not other cities that have that,
Right.
but it's there because we place importance on it.
I agree. I totally agree.
And so, you know, if that's the case, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit trying.
Okay. All right, good. I mean, I appreciate you sharing that. So I want to close up. We got another 10 minutes. Again, I don't want to miss anything that this is your time.
Oh, I'm enjoying this. This
Okay.
is great.
Cool. So the structure of politics, the structure, I don't know how else to say it, is that we had, when you were a younger man, we probably had 5 council members, right? We had a mayor that was elected from those council members. When I moved here, we had 30,000 population. We had the same structure. Today, we're pushing, if not over 50, somewhere in that
That's
neighborhood.
47, 48.
Yeah. So we're pushing 50. When you hit 50, certain things either, I don't know about by law, but they should be triggered and a new structure considered. Let's say for kicks and giggles, we hover at 48,000 for a couple, 2 or 3 years. Tell us how you feel about the structure, that 5-person, do you think 5 people is enough or are enough? And do you believe that the system of electing a mayor from council every single year is a good one?
So, great question. I don't necessarily. I'm not against the current system because I think when it's utilized correctly, it works. Now, I've been approached by several in the community that want a popularly elected mayor, and I'm not close to that. But I want to make sure that we're not trading one problem for another.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if the way it stands now, we have 5, 3 run, and then 2 run, and they alternate. That way you never have a fresh new
Right.
set of all 5 faces, right?
Yeah.
And so if the city, if the community, which would require opening the charter and changing some rules, that is something that is voted on.
Yeah.
You
It's a
know,
big job.
council can't do that.
Right.
But if they want that to happen, I'm not opposed to looking at, you know, 7 as opposed to 5. I'm not opposed to making one of those 7 the mayor seat.
Yeah.
What people need to understand is that in our charter, our city is run by our city manager,
Right.
not by our mayor.
That's right.
You know, our mayor has some duties and some special things that he or she can do. In that, you know, they can appoint board members and things like that. They can request a special, you know, sessions.
Yeah. Can be the face of the city. At
Yeah,
certain things.
they get to go to, you know, ribbon cuttings
Right.
and things like that. But as far as the day-to-day function of the city,
That's right.
they're not really they have no more power than the rest of the council
That's right.
members on
Right.
the council.
Right.
So, you know, you have to ask yourself, do we really want to do that? Do we want to pick who that person is? Because one vote is one vote is one vote.
That's right.
So
Yeah, I came here from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and home of Crimson Tide, by the way. Where it was the opposite. It was a very strong, well-paid, elected mayor's position, and in that case, the mayor has been the mayor for a long, long time. But there's no doubt that he runs the city, and that the not really insignificant city manager, but a weaker city
Yes.
manager process. So it was the opposite. But that mayor was elected and paid, and I can't remember how many city council people are on city council, but I think we're getting closer to saying, okay, whether we need to put this to a vote. Do not that we need a mayor, a strong mayor like Tuscaloosa, and a weaker city management, but do we need to continue having mayor chosen from 5 people? And one of the things I'll throw at you is that I believe that the mayor, because the break of continuity is troubling to me, and not that the mayor can do any more than what you said, but I do think that if one personality is the mayor this year and another personality is the mayor next year, there's going to be a difference in the culture, a little bit of the culture of the city.
Yes.
And so I've thought, if a mayor's elected, that for at least as long as that mayor is reelected, that they are a mayor for at least 2 terms, 2 years, not 2 terms, 2 years, because of the continuity issue. I think running the risk, couldn't imagine.
Absolutely. So
having-
so you basically just described what I'm talking about, in that you have to be careful when you open Pandora's box,
yeah,
you know,
you're right.
because this decision affects multiple decisions, you know, and I just want us to do our due diligence.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the direction that the community wants to go, I'll listen to it, but I want to listen to all sides of it and make sure that we're not trading one issue for another.
Yeah, you know what would be? I agree. What would be interesting is in one of your remaining Tuesdays with Trace is to ask.
I've
It's
been asked that
anecdotal.
question, by the way.
They've asked you.
Yes, I've been
I wa-
asked about popular election of a mayor, and the one thing that my only concern is, like I said, the people that are actually asking for that, I want to make sure they understand what the mayor in Waxahachie actually
Yeah.
can and can't do.
Good point.
Because it's really not as a driving of a role. I mean,
Yeah, you know,
and I'll give you an
you're right.
example. It takes 3 of the 5 to vote
And
for
anything, most anything,
something,
yeah.
and unless it
Super
requires
majority.
a super majority.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. But if there's 3 and one of which is not the mayor, it still passes.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it-
Yeah, you're right.
looking at it from that perspective, I'm like, I don't have any reason not to like that idea. I
Yeah.
just don't understand fully the importance of doing that.
Yeah, I think I think what you're saying, one of the things I know what you're saying is that when you put a vote out to the public and they choose somebody, they expect that vote to be used via somebody that's going to have the power to do something, and it would be a juke on them.
It's
to
a
say, "You're voting for
misrepresentation.
somebody."
Yeah.
He can't do anything.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
can't do any. He
Yeah.
can't do any. I mean, and don't get me wrong. There are a few things that the actual mayor of Waxahachie can do.
Yeah.
Like I said, and it's very important. You know, we have parks boards, we have library board, we have water boards, we have
Yeah.
all these boards, and you know that is a function. If you want to talk about something that I would like to see different,
Mm-hmm.
instead of one person, for example, the mayor, picking all of those seats, why not allow
Council.
council to have some input on that?
Yeah, I don't know why it is the way that it is.
I think it's personal preference. Some in the past, some mayors have garnered input and feedback from the council as far as, or they might delegate and go, hey, I need you to find me a really good individual for the Parks Board.
Right.
And I think it's at the mayor's discretion. They can do it however they choose.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha. Those are very good thoughts, and I appreciate them. Is there, before we close up, is there anything else that I've missed that you intended to be able to share that you want to share? I don't want
we could do this for
I
another
know.
5
I told
hours.
somebody today. Okay, so why don't you share? Can you share some of those? Okay. And I'll repeat that. Okay. Okay. Okay.
The first one we have here is Nero. We have Nero Services says, why should we vote for you and not David?
Yep. So the question from Nero.
Nero.
okay, a comment on social media is, why should we vote for you rather than the mayor?
Well, first and foremost is I can do a better job. I mean, I bring a very unique set of skills and ideas to this position. I have fresh thoughts. I am a solutions oriented, individual, and I haven't been in that position for 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm a term limits guy, so that's important to me, because whether you want to acknowledge it or not, the longer you sit in that seat, you tend to lose that edge.
So I do. Let me ask you this, because I asked you similar earlier, but a little bit more specific a question this time. Is term limits? So when you, because I am, oh boy, am I ever on that bandwagon, and have been. It's a monumental task to get Congress or any group to change their own term limits. With respect to term limits here, so a term is 2 years. How many terms do you think would be ideal for any council member, regardless of age, ethnicity, background, whatever, to run? I'm sorry, to stay on council.
So if we're doing our job correctly, and we're mentoring that next wave, 3-4 terms tops.
Okay.
But that again, it requires us to be open to bringing that younger group in, and
better not run and leave us with some schmo.
right.
That.
But it also that is the beauty of what I'm talking about doing, and why you would do it that way, because it almost forces you to do so.
Yeah.
As opposed to sitting back and go, well, I can be on, I don't have anything else to do. I can be on here for forever.
Got it. Okay. What else?
How do I get in contact with Atkins if I have questions of my own, says Edmund.
So
Let me repeat it so that everybody can. How the person asked, how can they get in touch with Trace if they have questions? So Trace.
So the best way to reach me is Tuesdays with Trace, 6:30 to 8:30. We also have a number that you can call. Let me look it up to make sure I'm giving you the right one. It's not my personal cell phone number, but it does ring here.
You'd be crazy.
Yes. So, but also atkinsforwaxahatchee@gmail.com. You can go to Trace Atkins for City Council on Facebook. And then we have, let's see here, 214-810-3725. That is a number that will ring right to this phone. And if you can ask anybody that's called, I answer.
Good. Did you get the number, Jackson? Did somebody get that number? Will you? Can you say it again, Trey?
Sure. That is 214-810-3725. 3725. 810-3725. Got it.
All right. Good. Very good. What else you got?
Okay, next question here is from Czar. He says, this guy is running for mayor and he owns Atkins Seafood.
Well,
So I'm not running for mayor. I'm
yeah. Let
running
me
for
let me
city council.
let me again. The question was this guy. This guy's running for mayor and he owns Atkins Seafood. You're about to say that you're not running for mayor, which you're not.
No, I'm not.
Right.
And I've been asked that question a lot, and
Yeah.
that circles back to what we were talking about earlier. We have to get out into the community and help, educate them, because every city's different. I mean, where they moved from, or what have
Could have been
you,
in Tuscaloosa.
Could have,
Yeah.
it could have been anywhere. Could
Right.
have been a whole different ball
Yeah.
of wax.
Yeah. So Trace isn't running for mayor; he's running for city council. City council then, once in June, once the votes have been canvassed, the city council city council members, whether it's new or incumbents, whatever, once the election's over, you guys then choose the mayor.
And
But
that is a public hearing, by the way.
it is a public hearing.
So you can come to that council meeting. It's all done right out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually kind of a neat process.
Yeah. Okay. What else?
RNG Generation says with an exclamation point. Atkins, can we get a 30-second elevator pitch for what you're running for? Yeah, Atkins.
Well, we just gave a hour and a half. If they want,
Question?
yeah. So the question is to you, Trace. We get a 30-second elevator speech on why you're running? I don't. You can give one if you want to, but we've just spent an hour and a half talking about why.
Right. Well, I mean, that's okay. I'll take a stab at it.
All right.
I'm running for accountability. I'm running for term limits, and I'm running for customer service. We as citizens of this community need leadership that will communicate and be accessible to all of our citizens, and put focus on managed growth, help keeping our tax burden under control, and just maintaining that hometown charm. And some people may not understand what that is, but if you get time and you ever see me in town and want to talk about it, stop me. I'll tell you all about hometown
Yeah, I mean,
charm.
you can come to Atkins Seafood, or you can just walk a few blocks over in the city square, and you'll get a sense of it, right?
Absolutely.
Anything else?
We had a question from Pet Hills. Well, they say, I agree with Mira. Why should we vote for you and not David?
Okay. So you've already answered that, but you're welcome to say it again if you want to.
Well, I mean,
Yeah. So it's like another question that's duplicate of an earlier one is, why should we vote for you rather than your opponent?
so it's simple for me. Is that I feel that I'll do a much better job. I feel that I have more to bring to the table. I have new, fresh ideas. I have a solutions-oriented approach to problem solving, and I know that I will be a voice for this community.
Okay. All right. Good.
I personally typed
Okay.
in the chat room and I said, Atkins has really fun green shoes on. For the record.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen them yet.
Yes, he has really fun green shoes on.
Oh yeah.
Shopper says hi, and we have a question from Connect.us, and they said, how? How are you as mayor going to invest in schools and parks, communities, etc.?
Yeah. So the question is, how, as mayor, would you invest in schools, parks, things of that nature? Let me just preface it. Again, Trace isn't running for mayor. He's running for city council position. City council has very little, if anything, in terms of power or authority with respect to the school district. That's run by the school superintendent and school board. The parks, and I don't know if it was something else, but anything you want to say about that, Trace, about interest in managing parks and the importance of them?
So we were just I was at a workshop here last week, and parks are an important part of our community. We have to manage them. But we also have to allow for this growth that we're experiencing to spread those things out.
Yeah.
I think it was, and I'm going from memory, they potentially want to spend something like $8 million in 2024 on parks. Of course, that's in the workshop, so that number could change.
Yeah.
But that's a big number.
Yeah.
So I bring a realistic approach to those things. The answer cannot always be burdening our taxpayer. We have to find creative ways to pay for things without raising taxes.
Yeah. So the value, I've often said that the value of having a robust is one value. I think it's a high one. Is that a robust economy? Is that if we manage it properly. So if the I don't know what you want to call it, the weight of business economy in Waxahachie is close to equal to right around where it is for residential in terms of the tax burden, then you guys are in a better position to manage the tax burden. But when a market or a community has low growth on the economic side, the residents, you and me, us, all of us carry the tax burden. And so running for council, it drives me crazy when people just say, oh, it's a novel idea in their minds. And, you know, and actually she supports you, so I'm not going to mention the name because that would be unfair. But a council person ran not long ago, and it just seems so flippant and a novel idea to her to be on council. And then, you know, at our expense, the community's expense, it took 3 or 4 years for her to figure out what was going on. It won't take you near that long, but it's an important job.
Absolutely.
It's not a flippant novel, I'll fill my time with running on council. It's an important thing. It affects us. So does school board.
Every dollar that we spend it comes from an entity that is not necessarily employed here.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we actually have a really robust sales tax revenue here in Waxahachie, and then that's not by an accident. You know, we've had some really smart individuals in the past. One of which is my wife's grandfather.
Yeah.
You know, he
Mr. Odom.
saw an opportunity to make this place special.
Yeah.
And a place where small businesses can flourish and raise their families.
Well, and they did. And Mr. Singleton, Mr. Odom, I can't list them all because I'll be in trouble with somebody.
Right.
But you guys know what that means.
Yes.
And it's important. And so we need this younger generation who isn't built the same
No, they're
to
not.
understand the importance of it. And
But they deserve the opportunity.
I agree.
And to learn. You know, I've got my youngest is 21. He'll be 22 next month. Going on, 12 sometimes.
Yeah.
But other times, he amazes me.
Yeah.
I put a lot of things on his plate, and he affords me to be sitting here having this conversation with you right now.
That's right. Yeah.
And I know he's going to make mistakes, and I'm prepared for those.
Yeah.
But that's the only way he's going to learn.
I agree. We got Doug is 32. Jackson is, 6.5? How old are you, Jackson?
I'm almost 40.
He knows I love him. I kid him a lot. But right. I mean, same thing.
We have to reinvest in our youth.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's not for everybody. But
What else you got?
The last question on here is actually one last one from me, and I decided to type in. How are you going to grow /keep the heart of Waxahachie?
How are you going to grow and keep? Let me kind of add something. Keep the heart of Waxahachie pumping.
So, you have to look at that from a 10,000 feet down viewpoint, right? We need to continue to focus on areas of improvement. I was just talking with a group the other day. Perfection is unattainable, but it doesn't mean we can't strive for it.
Right.
So some things will need lots of work and lots of focus, and others will be just kind of, simple.
Yeah.
But as long as we keep our eye on the ball, and we make it important to, as citizens, make that heartbeat important, we'll do just fine.
Okay.
It's like I said about the fish. If we do best for the city, we'll be just fine.
I agree. Anything else you want to close out with the community?
No, I think we've pretty
Okay.
much covered it all.
All right.
Just come see me.
Yeah.
Tuesdays with Trace.
All right. Thank you, Trace. Good having you here. Appreciate
Thanks.
it. I really do. So there you go. Trace Atkins running for city council, place 1. Election day is May the 4th, but early voting starts next Tuesday, next Monday, I think.
22nd.
It's 22nd, Monday through Saturday. So the 22nd through the 27th.
Yep.
And then the 29th and 30th,
Yes.
which are the Monday and Tuesday the following week. And then that Saturday is election day. Please show up and vote. We have such a low turnout, and that's not cool. You should have a say. You do have a say. All you have to do is exercise it. So be a beast for good. I'm grateful for everybody watching. this Thursday, we will have Trace's opponent, David Hill, on for the full hour and a half, and you'll be able to ask your questions and provide comments and that sort of thing. So, again, thank you, Trace, for being here. I really appreciate it.
I enjoyed
it. I did too. Thank you all, and I'll see you on Thursday.